All right, let's talk about something that's been on a lot of people's minds lately. We know the US is deeply divided right now, but what happens when that divide comes home, literally? What happens when love meets politics? You're a Democrat, your partner's a Republican. Can the relationship survive? Or is your love life just one election away from imploding? With the 2024 election looming, the question is more relevant than ever. Could these political battles be threatening your relationship? Are we really at a point where who you vote for could end things for good? Now, sure, political differences have always been a thing. People used to say, let's just agree to disagree, and that worked for a while. But it feels different now. It feels personal, intense, like every conversation could go off the rails if you say the wrong thing. Why? Well, social media plays a massive role. Think about it. Twitter, Facebook, they aren't just places to share opinions anymore. They're battlegrounds. They've turned into these echo chambers where the more you engage, the more you're fed content you already agree with. The algorithms are basically pouring gasoline on the fire. And if you're in a relationship with someone on the other side of that fire, yeah, things get complicated, fast. Look at the data. Pew Research says 77% of Americans believe the country is more divided than ever before. And that division? It's not just at the voting booth. It's at your family dinners, with your friends, and definitely in your romantic relationships. Dating across party lines feels impossible sometimes because the stakes are so high. Republicans and Democrats aren't just disagreeing anymore, they're positioned as ideological enemies. But hold on, before we get too bleak, there's another side to this story. Jessica Gross's article in the New York Times offers a different perspective. For many young people under 30, politics isn't necessarily a deal breaker. They're not prioritizing ideological alignment when they're looking for a partner. They're looking at deeper things, core values like empathy, respect, and emotional intelligence. And here's a wild stat from political scientists Yana Krupnikov and John Barry Ryan. About 80% of Americans don't follow politics that closely, which means political differences might not even come up in the early stages of a relationship. But what happens when you're on a first date? Everything's going great. You're talking about your favorite bands, swapping travel stories, and then boom, the conversation turns political. You weren't planning on bringing it up, but now it's here. What do? Do you steer away from it to keep things light, or dive in, knowing this could make or break the vibe? Is all this anxiety over political differences overblown, or is this moment the make or break test for your future? Let's dig into that. All right, let me introduce you to Alex and Sophia. They've been together for 3 years. Up until recently, their disagreements were the usual stuff: what to eat for dinner, which Netflix show to binge next. But then, a conversation about immigration hit a little closer to home. See, Alex comes from a family that's been in the US for generations. He's worried about jobs, national security, so naturally he supports stricter immigration controls. Sophia, on the other hand, comes from a Mexican-American family. For her, immigration isn't just a political issue, it's personal. It's about family, dignity, and opportunity. Suddenly, this wasn't just a policy debate anymore. It was their lived experience, their identities clashing over the dinner table. But here's the thing, Alex and Sophia aren't just at odds over immigration. It's about how they see the world, what they value. And this is where Dr. Samantha Green, a couples therapist specializing in politically divided relationships, steps in. She says it's not about agreeing on everything, it's about how you disagree. The key is communication and empathy, she says. Easier said than done, right? Now, let's talk about Jessica and David. Their relationship hit its breaking point when the topic of reproductive rights came up. For Jessica, abortion isn't some abstract political argument, it's deeply personal. It's about bodily autonomy, freedom, her right to choose. But for David, it's a moral issue. His religious beliefs shaped his pro-life stance, and for him, this wasn't something he could just compromise on or debate away. So what do you do when you're staring across the table at someone you love and you realize their values are fundamentally opposed to yours. How do you navigate that? Reproductive rights, especially after the Supreme Court's Dobbs v. Jackson ruling, have become a massive issue for a lot of people. According to the American Survey Center, 61% of young women see abortion as a crucial concern. But here's where it gets tricky. Only 14% of Americans say they couldn't date someone with opposing views on abortion, though 19% say it would be very difficult. And not surprisingly, this issue affects liberal and conservative women differently. Nearly 60% of liberal women say it'd be impossible or very difficult to date someone with opposing views on abortion, compared to 41% of conservative women. So where does that leave couples like Jessica and David? Are they doomed, or is there a way to navigate this minefield of moral and political tension? Here's where things get really interesting. These are just two couples, right? But how common is this? Are political differences actually breaking couples apart, or are these just extreme cases? Well, the numbers don't lie. Wakefield research found that 11% of Americans have ended a relationship over political differences. And it's worse for millennials. 22% of them have called it quits because of politics. 1/3 of married couples even say they'd consider divorce if their spouse supported Donald Trump. So, yeah, politics aren't just some harmless debate topic anymore. They're relationship deal breakers. But it's not just about who you vote for, it's about what that vote represents. Values, morality, identity. And when those things come into question, it can shake the foundation of any relationship. So what's the real takeaway? It's not just about agreeing or disagreeing anymore. It's about how well you can understand the things that matter most to your partner, even when they don't align with your own. Navigating tough conversations without losing sight of why you're together is what will make or break your relationship in this political climate. But as we get closer to the 2024 election, it's hard not to wonder, are we really prepared for that pressure? Or is the growing divide too big to ignore, even in the most intimate parts of our lives? The real test may still be coming. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Have you felt this clash in your own relationships? Whether it's been a quiet tension or an all-out debate, we want to hear your stories.